Most wine lovers assume buying a Burgundy Grand Cru means spending 500, 1,000, sometimes several thousand US dollars on a single bottle. The truth is, you don't have to. After more than 30 years of collecting Burgundy, I have learned that some of the smartest Grand Cru purchases aren't necessarily the most famous ones. They are the bottles that quietly over-deliver. The ones you open 10 or 15 years later and think, why didn't I buy more of this? That's exactly what this video is about. Today, I'm sharing 5 Burgundy Grand Crus that you can still buy for around $250 or less. Not because they are the cheapest Grand Crus, but because I genuinely think they are among the best value Grand Crus still available today. Many of these have lived in my cellar for years, and if I were rebuilding my collection tomorrow, I would happily buy every one of them again. By the end of this video, you will know which Grand Crus I think offer the best value today, what style each vineyard produces, and which bottle might suit your own cellar best. And one final thought before we begin. While you are still discovering your preferences, buy 3 or 6 bottles rather than a full case of 12. A cellar should evolve alongside your taste. Charmes-Chambertin, Domaine Geantet-Pansiot. If you are looking for your first Burgundy Grand Cru, Charmes-Chambertin is one of the smartest places to begin. Unlike some of Vougeraie's more muscular Grand Crus, Charmes-Chambertin is known for producing wines that combine generosity with elegance. They are often approachable a little earlier, yet still have the structure to age beautifully for decades. The challenge is that Charmes-Chambertin covers 31 hectares, more than a third of all Vougeraie's Grand Crus. So quality varies enormously from one producer and even one parcel to another. That's exactly why producer matters here. Charmes-Chambertin is a 31-hectare east-facing Grand Cru vineyard, sitting at around 270 meters above sea level. Its name comes from the hornbeam trees, charme in French, that once covered many Burgundy hillsides before vines were planted. Hornbeam produced one of Europe's hardest woods and was traditionally used for cartwheels, ox yokes, and farming tools. Domaine Geantet-Pansiot's 0.45 hectare parcel, planted in 1964, sits in one of the finest parts of the vineyard, bordering Charmes-Chambertin, where the soils are redder and shallower. The domaine's own motto says it all. Être sobre, c'est boire bon. To be sober is to drink well. I couldn't agree more. Founded in 1954, when Edmond Geantet married Bernadette-Pansiot, the domain has been run by Vincent Geantet since 1989, after joining the family estate in 1977. Since 2006, he has been joined by his son, Fabien, and daughter, Émilie. The nose offers stewed blackberry, sweet spice, damp earth, and dried flowers. On the palate, you will find blackberry, raspberry, cherry, plum, game, truffle, menthol, and cinnamon, layered over a subtle forest floor and mineral notes. This is a wonderfully complete expression of the domaine's style. Dense and powerful, yet silky and beautifully balanced. There is plenty of concentration, but the fruit always stays in focus. It's a wine with real presence, without ever feeling heavy, and one that shows exactly why Charmes-Chambertin deserves far more attention than it often receives. The 2022 vintage is around $240, while the 2024 is around $245. Clos de Roche, Domaine Castagnier. If you are after a Grand Cru that rewards patience more than almost any other, Clos de Roche deserves serious attention. This isn't usually the most charming Burgundy in its youth. In fact, it can seem surprisingly reserved when young. But give it 10 or 15 years, and it transforms into one of the most fascinating wines in the Côte de Nuit. That's why it has remained a fixture in my cellar. Though it doesn't carry the village name, Clos de la Roche is the largest and certainly the best-known Grand Cru of Moret-Saint-Denis. The vineyard has expanded from its original 4.57 hectares in the late 19th century to 16.9 hectares today through the incorporation of neighboring lieux-dits. Domaine Castagner's 0.57 hectare parcel is located in the Mauchamp section of the Grand Cru. Clos de la Roche typically produces broad, richly structured wines with an earthy personality. There is often a slightly wild character, sometimes with hints of truffle, that sets it apart from many of Burgundy's other Grand Cru. Founded in 1890 by Jules Séguin, who acquired his first parcel from the Marémorge estate, the domain expanded under Gilbert Vallée during the 1950s. Today, this 4-hectare biodynamic estate spans 15 parcels, including 2 hectares of Grand Cru vineyards. Since taking over from his father Guy in 2005, 5th-generation Jérôme Castagnier, a former musician with the French Republican Guard, has combined the family's heritage with increasingly precise vineyard and cellar work. The nose opens with vibrant red fruits, crushed stone, tubercle leaf, mushroom, and delicate floral notes. On the palate, raspberry, strawberry, red cherry, and blood orange are layered with hints of cinnamon and clove, all supported by stony minerality and a gentle, peppery lift. What I enjoy most is its sense of restraint. Everything feels pure, precise, and beautifully balanced. Rather than relying on sheer power, the wine draws you in with freshness, quiet complexity, and remarkable persistence. With time in the cellar, it becomes something truly special. The 2022 vintage is around $190, while the 2024 is around $155. Clos de Vougeot, Gros, Frère et Sœur. If there's one Grand Cru that proves producer matters just as much as the vineyard, it's Clos de Vougeot. Many collectors buy their first bottle expecting greatness, only to be disappointed. The reason is simple. Clos de Vougeot isn't one vineyard in the way many people imagine. It's almost 50 hectares shared between around 80 different owners with huge variations in soil, elevation, and exposure. 2 bottles carrying exactly the same Grand Cru name can taste completely different. That's why I always buy the producer before I buy the label. The history of Clos de Vougeot dates back to the late 12th century, when the monks of the Abbaye de Cîteaux enclosed the land and vineyards they had received through various donations. The name Clos de Vougeot first appeared in writing in the year 1212, and the monks remained its owners until the French Revolution, when the vineyard was sold at auction in 1791. Today, the vineyard covers 50 hectares with around 80 owners. Differences in soil, slope, and exposure mean it is anything but a homogeneous Grand Cru. Gros Frère et Sœur's 1.5 hectare holding sits against the wall in the upper section of the clos, one of the finest parts of the vineyard right beside the chateau. The Gros family has been rooted in Vosges since 1830. The modern domain was created in 1963 when Colette and Gustave Gros combined their vineyard holdings. After Gustave's sudden death in 1984, their nephew, Bernard Gros, took over at just 22 years old. Over the following 3 decades, he's restructured the vineyards before handing the estate to his children, Élodie and Vincent, in 2010. The nose combines ripe red and black fruits with spice, autumn leaves, loam soil, and a touch of graphite. The palate layers wine blackberry, raspberry, tonka bean, clove, pepper, and earthy undergrowth with impressive purity and precision. What impresses me most is the balance. It's undeniably rich and powerful, yet never feels heavy. The oak is beautifully integrated, the texture is silky, and the freshness keeps everything vibrant from start to finish. This is exactly the style of Clos de Vougeot I love to buy. substantial, refined, and built for the long haul. The 2022 vintage is around $250, while the 2024 is around $195. Echézeaux, Honorvaux, Christian Clerget. If you are looking for one Burgundy Grand Cru that consistently offers outstanding value, Echézeaux would be very close to the top of my list. It may not have the mythical reputation of Romanée-Conti, Richebourg, or Latache, but among the leading growers, Echézeaux delivers remarkably consistent quality for considerably less money. And if I had to narrow it down even further, I would look for bottles from Honorvaux, one of the finest sections of the vineyard. Echézeaux is a large 36-hectare Grand Cru, first developed during the 12th century by the Cistercian monks working the neighboring Clos de Vougeot. Christian Clerget's 1.1-hectare parcel lies in Honorvaux, one of the most highly regarded lieux-dits at the northern end of the Grand Cru, on thin soils over hard limestone. Sitting just above Clos de Vougeot and bordering Musigny, it enjoys more sunlight than many other parts of Echézeaux. The estate itself was founded in 1930 by Jeanne Clerget, née Maugard. Using family vineyards, it passed to her son Georges in 1970, then to Christian in 1996, who embraced sustainable farming and low-intervention winemaking. Since 2014, Christian's daughter, Justine, after gaining experience in South Africa, New Zealand, and Argentina, has brought an international perspective to the domain, which has been certified organic since 2017. The nose opens with red and black fruits, cane, fresh leather, forest floor, and delicate floral notes. On the palate, blackberry, red currant, raspberry compote, plum, smoked tea, and gentle oak spices are layered over savory sous-bois flavors. What I love most is the balance. There is real concentration and structure, yet the wine never feels cumbersome. It has the depth and authority you might expect from a great Clos de Vougeot, but it's lifted by the perfume, elegance, and silky texture that make Vosne Romanée so captivating. Powerful, refined, and remarkably complete, it's exactly the kind of Grand Cru I still love buying today. The 2022 vintage is around $200, while the 2020 is around $255. Corton-Charlemagne, Le Charlemagne, Domaine de la Vougeraie. If you are looking for one white Burgundy Grand Cru that can age for decades, Corton-Charlemagne is one of the safest places to start. Many people expect it to taste like an even richer Meursault or grander Puligny-Montrachet. It doesn't. The base examples have tremendous power, but they are defined by freshness, minerality, and tension rather than sheer richness. That's exactly what makes them so compelling with age. Corton-Charlemagne is a 72-hectare Grand Cru made up of 9 vineyards clustered around the top of the famous hill of Corton, where limestone-rich soils favor Chardonnay over Pinot Noir. Domaine de la Vougeraie owns 2 parcels, 0.28 hectares in Charlemagne, a west-facing vineyard known for producing fine, racy wines, and 0.22 hectares in Le Charlemagne, where the wines tend to show greater depth, broader shoulders, and more richness. A great Corton-Charlemagne is defined by structure and tension, supported by vibrant acidity and a strong mineral backbone. It doesn't display the overt florality of Puligny-Montrachet, the buttery richness of Meursault, or the broader weight of Chassagne-Montrachet. Instead, it occupies its own style, linear, restrained, and incredibly age-worthy. Founded in 1999, Domaine de la Vougeraie brings together the Boisset family's finest vineyard holdings across the Côte de Nuit and Côte de Beaune. Fully biodynamic since 2001, the estate now spans almost 40 hectares, including 9 Grand Crus and 11 Premier Crus. Since 2017, Sylvie Poyot has led the domain, producing wines celebrated for their purity and texture. The nose opens with wild orchard fruit, citrus, oyster shell, crushed stone, and honeysuckle. On the palate, you will find green apple, pear, white peach, candied lemon, grilled almond, delicate hints of vanilla and honey, all wrapped around a distinctly flinty mineral core. This is a generous expression of Corton-Charlemagne, but what impresses me most is its balance. There is real concentration and intensity, yet the acidity keeps everything fresh and precise. Rather than feeling heavy, the wine has remarkable tension, with the minerality carrying the finish long after the fruit has faded. It's a style that rewards patience, and for me, one of Burgundy's greatest white wines. The 2022 vintage is around $260, while the 2024 is around $230. These are 5 Burgundy Grand Crus that have earned a permanent place in my cellar. There are certainly more famous names in Burgundy. There are also many far more expensive bottles. But if your goal is to brew a cellar thoughtfully, rather than simply chase prestige, I think these represent some of the most rewarding opportunities still available today. How would I choose between them? If you are buying your first Grand Cru, I would start with Charmes-Chambertin. It's generous, approachable, and beautifully illustrates why Burgundy has captivated collectors for generations. If you are prepared to wait, Clos de Vougeot is a patient collector's wine. It may seem restrained in its youth, but time transforms it into something truly remarkable. If you are considering Clos de Vougeot, remember one thing: buy the producer before you buy the appellation. A great parcel from a great grower makes all the difference. For me, Echézeaux remains one of Burgundy's genuine sweet spots. It offers much of the refinement people associate with Romane's greatest vineyards, but at a much more approachable price. And if white Burgundy is your passion, Corton-Charlemagne stands in a class of its own. Powerful yet restrained, rich yet driven by freshness and minerality, it's one of the greatest age-worthy white wines in the world. Ultimately, though, wine collecting is never an exact science. These are simply the Grand Crus that have consistently rewarded me over more than 3 decades of collecting, drinking, and sharing bottles with family and friends. If you were adding just one of these Grand Crus to your cellar, which one would you choose? And is there another Burgundy comparison you would like to see next? Let me know in the comments section below. You will find more of my cellar insights and tasting notes on Instagram. Massive thanks for watching today. I will see you in the next one.